morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's press conference, where the Deputy Director and Senior Official performing the duties of the Deputy Director, Patrick J. Lechleitner, will provide you a brief overview of our recent nationwide law enforcement effort. He will start off with a few comments, and then afterwards we'll have some time for some questions and answers. During the question and answer period, he will be joined by the Executive Associate Director for Enforcement Removal Operations, Daniel A. Bible. When you ask your question, I ask that each one of you please raise your hands, identify yourself and the agency that you're with, or the outlet that you're with, and just a few admin notes before we start. If we haven't done so, we kindly ask that you silence your cell phones. And everything is on the record today. Thank you. Without further ado.
Good morning. I'm Patrick J. Lechleitner, Acting Director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And I'm joined here today by Dan Bible, the Executive Associate Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations, or ERO, as we call them. Thank you for joining us here today as we announce the results of a targeted operation that enabled us to arrest potentially dangerous non-citizens in 25 cities across the United States. Over the course of 11 days, our dedicated and committed law enforcement officers zeroed in on removable, at-large non-citizens who are wanted for or who have already been convicted of horrible, almost unspeakable crimes like assault against children, including sexual assault and murder. Our officers also targeted non-citizens who present dangers to national security, public safety, and border security. ICE only targets non-citizens for arrest when they can determine that an arrest is a good use of our resources. We operate with limited funding, but enforcing existing immigration laws within the U.S. Interior is ERO's top priority. It's our job to enforce these laws to keep the American people safe. This operation took place in 25 major cities across the country, places where unlawfully present non-citizens were moving freely after being accused or convicted of truly heinous crimes or threatening our peace and security in the United States. But these communities are now safer thanks to our officers' tireless efforts. They've worked around the clock tracking down targets and planning safe, efficient, and effective arrests. Today, I'm pleased to announce that our officers took 171 potentially dangerous, unlawful present non-citizens off the streets. Of those, 103 had convictions or pending charges for assault against children, including sexual assault, and 10 had pending charges or convictions of homicide or murder. ERO is focused on smart, effective immigration enforcement. We know that targeted operations like this will help us fulfill our obligations to the American people, and then that they minimize our risks to the brave officers and the innocent people living in these communities. The fact is that at-large arrests can be incredibly dangerous. We can't predict how fugitives will react. So when we're forced to arrest a fugitive who's at large in the community, our officers plan for every possible outcome. But one thing is always certain. We will always continue to enforce our nation's existing immigration laws within the interior of the United States when undocumented non-citizens who are wanted for horrible crimes, including crimes against children, are roaming the streets. ERO will find them and protect our communities, without a doubt. I commend the hard work, dedication, and commitment of all of our officers displayed over the past week and a half. And without the highly trained professionals in the 25 field offices who took to the streets to participate in this essential operation, we wouldn't be able to proudly announce these results today. I'd also like to thank our law enforcement partners on the ground in each of these cities where this operation took place. We truly value your partnerships and look forward to helping keep your communities safe. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to open it for questions.
Jenny Terr with the Daily Caller News Foundation. You kind of mentioned this in your remarks, and Secretary Mayorkas has said this previously in a memo, but the message kind of has been that ICE will no longer arrest someone based solely on them being in the country illegally. Do you think that broadcasting such a policy has encouraged more people to come here?
I don't think that's necessarily encouraged more people to come here. We have to prioritize our resources based off the reality we have limited resources. So we prioritize within our priorities, and national security and public safety threats are those top priorities. So I think it's just a reality of the situation.
Hi, sir. Quinn Owen with ABC News. This is the sort of work that your officers are doing day in and day out. Can you speak to this moment specifically and what was kind of the driving force behind this almost 2-week push where all 171 were arrested? What's special about that moment?
Thanks, Quinn. That's a good question. We routinely design operations throughout the year. And we have, like I said before in a previous question, we do have limited resources, so we can't consistently go out in a persistent manner do this constantly because we don't have enough people resources. There's not enough, in capability to do that. So we have to do these targeted operations. It requires a lot of prep work to get this together. So we do a lot of due diligence, a lot of pre-planning intelligence work, criminal intelligence work, to put it together, and then we target this for a given period of time for maximum benefit.
Thank you. My name is Pedro Rojas. I'm with Univision National News.
Good morning.
Morning. I wanted to ask you about, I know that the preparation, a few years back, I was able to be a part of one of these operations, and I know it's a 24/7, never-ending, and there's a lot of intelligence that goes on beforehand. Were these folks previously identified as potential targets, or how was this put together in regards of going to these cities? I wonder if there was a file prior to get them arrested and so forth.
For that, I'll bring in Dan, who runs ERO. He knows more of those specifics, and I think it'd be appropriate for him to answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So all these individuals, we use our operation division centers, right? So we have centers that we use to gather intel. So we set the parameters for this particular operation, and then we set our divisions out to go look for these people and call through all the intel that we could find to locate and identify these individuals before we went out to make these arrests. Sure.
Thank you. Sure.
Yeah. Nicole Skanga, CBS News. Thank you so much for holding this press conference.
Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to ask, first and foremost, if you can speak a little bit more to the operational footprint to the extent you can. I know there are security considerations about actual boots on the ground, the number of cities, just giving us a sense of how large this was. And if I can ask a sort of broader question, I know there's a concern right now about undocumented adults and children apprehended by Border Patrol, and whether or not they're reporting to immigration authorities, ICE, as required after their release. So I'm wondering if you have a percentage there, and if you can speak to how that number reporting to ICE authorities has evolved.
Okay, yeah. Good question. So I will bring in Dan a little bit on that, but to get it started, I will say this was a nationwide operation that spanned across the country. We targeted 25 major urban areas and cities for this, and hundreds of personnel were involved. So this was a very large targeted operation for ICE, specifically ERO, and took a lot of planning and a lot of due diligence to put that together. I don't know if we're going to necessarily have the specifics on some of the stats you were looking for. However, Dan may have more than me.
Thank you again, sir. So we can't say the majority of the individuals that are coming through do try to check in, right? But depending on what cities you go to, like the New Yorks and Miamis, there's a high volume, so it's taken a while to actually get people scheduled in. But what we are doing is we're leveraging technology, right? So we are bringing in different platforms where they can get online to schedule appointments, and also seeing if we can do some online checking in, mail out NTAs where they can request and update their addresses, so we can address the population the best that we can using technologies. But we are seeing a lot of compliance, and in those areas where we're not, they're going to end up in the same categories as these other, as a recent border entrant that's not complying, where those same people that went out and did this wonderful work will be looking for those individuals as well.
Thank you, Dan.
And just to follow up on some of the specifics of are there any particular cases here you'd like to highlight? Any details you can provide on a successful part of this operation in one of these major cities?
Well, I could just say it in general. We can get in, there are specifics, but a lot of these, they're in proceedings now, so we're not going to get into any kind of details on that because they got to go through their immigration proceedings going forward. However, there were a lot of individuals who, over 100 of them, were sex offenders. So there's a large number of that were in my remarks, and multiple, I think it was 10 plus at least, but wanted for homicide or some other very, very serious aggravated felony. So these were some of the very bad individuals that we targeted and wanted to take off the streets because they were significant public safety threats.
Thank you. We recently reported that ERO had arrested an Al-Shabaab member in Minnesota. I'm wondering, with that case, he was deemed a mismatch by Border Patrol and released into the interior of the country in March, but it took almost a year to actually nab him. How many other terrorists have been apprehended in the interior after coming through the border?
Well, I can say for this individual, within 48 hours, of ICE becoming aware of his status on the watch list, within 48 hours he was apprehended. And I want to commend our personnel because as soon as we became aware of that, within 48 hours he was apprehended and he's currently in ICE custody. So I think that's an incredible result and just a testament to how professional and, quite, honestly, how capable our personnel are.
Thank you again. Looking forward to the year, because I presume there's planning going on for operations such as this one taking place farther down on the road. Is there a criteria that you guys will be using, or are there individuals that you already have in the watch list? And the next question would have been, that I would like to ask is, how long does it take for these individuals to be finally removed? Because I know they have to go through all the legal proceedings, can be months, weeks. Is there a time frame for that?
Yeah, there's, thank you. That's good question. Highly variable on time frame. There are a lot of nuances to the immigration system and what they need to go through the court system. So they're going to have to go through, and they're going to have to go to immigration court and deal with an immigration judge and go through the whole removal proceedings. Once they're deemed, once we have a final order of removal on them, then we have to go about getting them actually removed. And there's a lot that goes into that, and travel documents and working with their host country and dealing with it. So highly variable, very difficult to speak to a specific time frame on that. I will say, and then on the other one about what we're doing, we are always looking to do operations throughout the year. And I can tell you we are always planning them. There will be multiple operations throughout this year, but I'm simply not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you right now I'm not going to tell you, because cops ain't going to tell our folks out there what we're going to do, because that's going to give it up, and we like to be a little secret with that. But we're going to do our due diligence. We're an intel-led organization, and we're going to target these individuals based off our priorities. Thank you.
Time for one more question.
Thank you so much. I won't ask when, but I will ask about resources and what further resources ICE needs right now. And if we can drill down a little bit about the current capacity of ICE detention facilities and what percentage of those facilities have beds filled. Do you have a number on beds filled? Furthermore, not going to ask you about hypothetical legislation, but maybe broadly, there has been, talk in the Senate of adding more beds. What would more detention space mean for ICE? What would that enable you to do? Is that something you're supportive of?
Yeah, absolutely. I am, 100%. We need more resources. We're working with the department and administration and our partners, obviously, in Congress from appropriations. Listen, we need more resources, and we're working to get that as hard as we can. We understand the political realities of that, but we need more resources. We're currently under a CR through the beginning of March, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions going forward if we don't get more supplemental funding, because we have to live within our means like everything else in the government and in reality. As far as what we're doing for beds, we're already over 5,000 more than what we're funded for. So we've been punching far above our weight. And we're going to have to deal, and look at dealing with reality going forward if we don't get supplemental funding. So we're using everything we have right now to go after these individuals, and we hope that our partners in, in the administration and working with Congress, we can get additional funding, because we definitely could use it.
When you say you're going to have to make some tough decisions, can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, we have to look at the organizational structure and just see where we can get efficiencies and where we can, work with the budget. Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.